Um, oh no. Hello, hello. There we go. I can now see the little jumpy things. That means, oh no, that means that you guys didn't hear me try out my Japanese intro. Oh. I recently started taking a Japanese, like a casual Japanese course. So, I've been practicing I've been practicing my Japanese. Um, so, well, I guess it's a good thing if you guys didn't hear it. You could do the intro again. I guess I could. Now I'm a little shy. こんばんは。皆さん、元気ですか? Thank you. I'm gonna be working. I'm gonna be working on my Japanese so that I can do some Japanese stuff. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and jump back into the hero and his elf bride open a pizza parlor in another world. So, when last we read the book, we read the first 4 chapters, and a Japanese businessman died of overwork and was reborn as the high calorie hero. And he was sent to a fantasy world full of elves who have very poor diets. All they eat is raw vegetables. And he is tasked with making pizzas. And he made his first pizza with the elf princess, who is apparently also now his bride. So, picking up where we left off, Chapter 5, Kaito treats the headman's household to pizza. Ow, 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 ow. When he woke up the next morning, Kaito found himself groaning and cradling his arms. He'd made an awful lot of pizza the day before, and his muscles hurt. He could barely move. Goodness, Kaito, are you all right? Fiona asked when she saw him rising unsteadily to his feet. Lord Kaito, whatever is wrong? Lilia rushed to his side. Kaito managed to smile for her benefit. We did a lot of baking yesterday. I'm just a little sore. The pizza skill card had given him the knowledge of an experienced practitioner, but not the body. That's terrible! Lilia dashed across the room and grabbed the first aid kit. I don't think we need to. You should keep them cool. Kaito decided not to argue as Lilia bandaged him. He certainly wouldn't mind a little relief. Lilia took something like ointment and covered it in gauze, then wrapped it around Kaito's arms. Kaito found that her diligent attention gave him a surprisingly warm feeling. Gee, it's awful nice having someone to fuss over me like this. When you live by yourself, you have to deal with all your illnesses and injuries on your own. How's that? Lilia looked up at him, having finished applying the bandages. Up close like this, Kaito could see how big and beautiful her emerald-like green eyes really were. Her strawberry blonde hair reflected the sunlight. Her strawberry blonde hair reflected the sunlight, shimmering gracefully. A girl this gorgeous is kind of a waste on me, even if she does have an insane appetite. He decided it would be best not to push himself until he was more accustomed to the work. His arms felt like overinflated swim wings, like they might burst at any moment. Perhaps you should take a day off, Fiona offered, looking worried. You're right, but we have the oven going and everything. He didn't want to waste the leftover heat. I can manage a little bit. Then an idea struck him. If it's all right, would you let me make dinner tonight? You've taken such good care of me. I'd like to treat you to some pizza. We'd be very grateful, but please don't overexert yourself. Kaito nodded vigorously at Edmund. Oh, that was supposed to be the dad. Oops. We're very grateful, but please don't overexert yourself. Kaito nodded vigorously at Edmund. I'll be all right. Pizza for 5, then. Kaito was excited as he arrived at his shop. He wouldn't be baking until that night, but preparations had to start first thing in the morning. It took time to ferment the dough and especially heat the oven. A peel and brush for cleaning. He read off the names of the new cards that had been added to his item pouch. He was grateful that he kept getting more items at each new stage, even if it was only because it was so early in his career. He opened the oven door and used the peel to clean out the ash and cinders inside. Oh, ow, 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 ow. Oh, I'll do that, Lilia offered. She was becoming a genuinely helpful partner. Thanks. Could you clean up the embers in there? Leave it to me. Lilia began moving the brush enthusiastically. A cloud of ash puffed up and assaulted their faces. Kaito helplessly broke into a coughing fit. Lilia, too, choked from the smoke. Yikes! Kaito hurriedly opened the windows and the door to let fresh air in. Lilia, go slow, okay? I'm very sorry. She had gotten a little overexcited, that was all. She was a good person, albeit a bit scatterbrained and slightly rough around the edges. Look, now you've got all. Oh wait, that's supposed to be Kaito. Sorry. Look, now you've got dirt on your face. Kaito wiped away the smudges on Lilia's cheek. His heart rate jumped when he felt the smoothness of her skin, and he quickly looked away. Anyway, I'll handle the rest. Eventually, they succeeded in cleaning the oven. Kaito picked out some small pieces of wood and started a fire. All right, oven's ready to go. He picked up his item pouch. Now, ingredients. He reached into the bag. He had used up all the ingredients his cards had provided the day before. Whew. Several new cards had appeared in his bag. All the ingredients. Wheat flour, natural yeast, tomatoes. One by one they appeared as he read them out loud. It amused him to see Lilia watching with wide eyes. He felt like he'd become a magician. Garlic? It was the first time he'd seen that ingredient. A moment later, different varieties of pizza suddenly popped into his head. Tomato sauce, plus garlic. Marinara. Marinara? Lilia looked puzzled. What kind of pizza is that? It has a long history. It has the longest history of any Neapolitan pizza, having been created around 1750. It's a simple pie beloved by fishermen, featuring tomato sauce and garlic. Kaito couldn't lie to himself this time. He was dying to put his skills to use. But despite his burning passion, he realized he had gone over Lilia's head. Oh, sorry. That's knowledge from the world I used to be in. I know it doesn't mean much to you. No, it's fine. Lilia gently wiped her hand around her mouth. Drool. Just listening to you makes it sound so good. Oh, it does? Lilia had Lilia had the look of a wild animal hunting its prey. Well, I'm glad you're looking forward to it. Yes, I'm looking forward. I made her sound like Mickey there. Yes, I'm looking forward to tonight. Wait, Lilia, stop. You can't eat a whole bulb of garlic. I haven't even peeled it yet. He practically had to jump on her to keep her from consuming the raw ingredients she'd picked up. Oh, I'm sorry. I just forgot myself. Forgot yourself and almost ate an entire unpeeled bulb of garlic. This isn't cooked yet. It wouldn't taste very good this way. I'll make plenty of food, so just calm down, Lilia. Okay. Lilia nodded sweetly, but she continued eyeing the garlic. I'm making this pizza to show my gratitude to you guys, so I'll make it by myself. You just wait inside, okay? Are you sure? Kaito grabbed Lilia's hand as it reached for the garlic again. I'm sure. Please just wait. Okay, I will. Having him take her hand inspired a fit of blushing and gaze aversion. I'll wait. Yes, please do. When he had finally succeeded at getting Lilia out of the kitchen, Kaito heaved a sigh of relief. Her beast mode, her unfettered displays of appetite, worried him more than a little. How could such a restrained and quiet girl go so out of control when she got hungry? Kaito finally got around to working on the meal. All right, time to bake some pizzas. It was almost dinner, and Kaito entered the pizza parlor. He shaped the dough and got the tomato sauce ready. Because pizza marinara, unlike margherita, doesn't use cheese, he made sure there was plenty of sauce. He applied it in a spiral shape, remembering that inconsistency was the key to delightful mouthfeel. Then came a pinch of salt, followed by something called Hanaka? Hanahaka? Hanahaka? I don't know that word. I think it's spice. Okay. So let me start. Sorry, I'm so sorry, guys. Let me start that sentence over. Then came a pinch of salt, followed by something called hanahaka, which was what he'd found in the garden to substitute for oregano. Okay, so it's a worldly spice. Finally, he added the most important ingredient for good pizza, marinara, the garlic. Oh, finally, he added the most important ingredient for good pizza marinara, the garlic. He put garlic slices onto the crust to bring out the aroma. He doused everything in olive oil, and the pizzas were ready to go. These were his first pizzas marinara, but he was very pleased with them. It was impossible not to smile as he looked at the rich pies, each as red as the setting sun. He put 4 of them into the oven, one after another. Cooking several at once was no problem for him. He lifted each one with the peel to check that it was done, then took them out. Ah, it smells so good. Kaito took the 4 pizzas straight to the mansion, wanting everyone to enjoy them fresh from the oven. Ah, Lord Kaito! His 3 dinner guests were already at the table, waiting anxiously. The table was set. All he had to do was provide the food. Here you go, my very first pizza marinaras. Lilia and her family all exclaimed as he set the pizzas on the table. Wow, it's so red! It looks just like the setting sun, Lilia gushed. It's such a rich color. What are those little black spots? Hanukkah for fragrance. It does smell wonderful. I think it'll go. Uh, I think it'll go well with the garlic. Go ahead, help yourselves. Don't mind if we do. The 4 of them immediately dug into the pizza. Mmm. A satisfied sigh seemed to come from everyone at once. Oh, the sour flavor of the tomatoes really spreads through your mouth. The garlic, that garlic has a punch. It really brings out the taste. The crust is so fluffy. All of them ate voraciously, and in no time at all the plates were empty. Ah! Everyone at the table was clearly very happy. For a beautiful moment they savored the aftertaste of the food on their palates. Kaito felt the same way he had the day before. Having people compliment the food he put so much effort into making felt even better than he'd originally thought. All right, I'll make this again, Kaito thought, feeling motivated. Whew, I'm stuffed, Edmund said, wiping his mouth with a napkin. Thank you. I'll bring tea and some gelatin for dessert. Fiona bustled around the table, picking up dishes and setting out cups. Ah, what a pleasure to share a meal with my family. It certainly is. And it's so nice to have a new family member like this. Uh, thanks, I think. What does that even mean? Kaito worried. Was he like family? Or was he actually part of the family? That was the question. Geez, I'm getting so worked I'm starting to sound like Hamlet. Enjoy, everyone. Don't mind if I do. Kaito took his serving of gelatin Fiona had brought out and dug in. Ah, that's refreshing. The gelatin felt cleansing in his mouth. Is this mint? It's menthy and lemon. Whatever menthy was, it was apparently a fresh-smelling herb similar to mint. The the sweetness comes from extract of sweet slime. Slime? Kaito stared at the gelatin in disbelief. Yes, Fiona said matter-of-factly. It has a lot of nutrients that make it an excellent beautifier. Like collagen, perhaps. That's an alternate world for you. Well, it's delicious. Thank you. It wasn't especially sweet, but it was a perfect chaser for the pizza. The headman's dining room was full of pictures and knickknacks. Kaito's eyes stopped on a garland of dried flowers, blue and white blossoms woven into a ring, and he pointed to it. What's that? Ah, that is the flower. Sorry, that's supposed to be the man's voice. Ah, that's the flower garland my wife and I used at our wedding. We dried and saved it as a memento. Wow. So they wore that on their head? It was true, the blue and white flowers had an innocent, pure aesthetic that would be well suited to a wedding. In our village, it's tradition for the groom to pick blue and white flowers for the bride. Then he gives the bride the garland as a gift, and she wears it at their wedding. Those flowers are called bluebells and whitebells. They only grow on sheer mountain cliffs, so they're not very easy to get. That's what makes it such a touching gift. Sounds like a real rite of passage. I wonder if it's anything like bungee jumping. Kaito was about to ask the question aloud, but caught himself. Even he couldn't, even he could tell it wasn't quite the same thing. You'll, you'll go pick them too, won't you, Kaito? For Lilia. Um, Fiona, oh, that was supposed to be the mom. You'll go pick them too, won't you, Kaito? For Lilia? Um, Kaito sounded, Fiona sounded like she thought everything was already settled in, and it brought Kaito up short. The entire family looked at him with hopeful eyes. Oh, I let my guard down for 1 minute, and look what happens. This is bad. This is real bad. Kaito began looking anywhere but at the people around him. Oh, what's that pretty shield-like thing? He directed their attention to something that appeared to be a shield, but was the color of an iridescent beetle. The greenish shimmer was unlike anything he'd ever seen before. Ah, my dear Kaito, you have excellent taste. Edmund was nodding happily to Kaito's relief. Apparently, he'd succeeded in changing the subject. That is a dragon's scale. A dragon? There are dragons around here? Kaito thought for a moment that maybe they were teasing him, but everyone's faces turned serious, starting with Edmund's. There certainly are, he said. He said it as though it were a perfectly obvious fact, but Kaito was dumbfounded. Sure, okay. When you've got a place with elves and slimes, I guess it only makes sense to have dragons, too. But still, dragons? Are they really huge creatures that fly through the sky and breathe fire? Are there any around here? One lives just past Twin Peak. He spends most of his time asleep, but he does wake up every once in a while. Twin Peak? That mountain with two summits that you can see to the east. Oh, is that it? Kaito knew which mountain Edmund was talking about. It was pretty distinctive. It was quite a ways off, but not so far that a dragon couldn't fly there and back. To think there were dragons so close by. Uh, does he ever attack the villages, perchance? Hmm. Well, it seems food has been scarce in the mountains lately, so he does make his way to inhabited areas sometimes. Does he eat people? No, but he attacks the livestock and occasionally makes a mess of our fields. It sounded a bit it sounded a bit like on Earth when a bear woke up from hibernation and wandered into town. It wasn't unheard of for them to attack humans. You seem pretty calm about this. If you don't mind me asking, isn't it a problem? Well, of course it is. We wish we could do something about it, but the dragon is huge and terrible. What do you do when he comes? Often we get everyone in the village to make as much noise as they can in hopes of driving the creature off, but we certainly couldn't win in a fair fight, so we try not to attack him directly. In a worst-case scenario, we might have to summon soldiers from the palace, but the warriors in our army aren't exactly intimidating. Kaito hadn't realized the elves faced such a terrible situation, But then again, nobody seemed unduly worried about it. The damage it did wasn't awful, and they had no way to fight it. The dragon was more like a natural disaster than a monster. It's not all bad. Dragons naturally shed their old scales, and those are quite valuable. It gives us a chance to make a little money. That particular scale has been passed down in this family for generations. Dragon scales are very tough and last a long time. That's what makes them precious. I see. Kaito's interest was piqued by talk of something so unique in this alternate world. Is dragon meat tasty by any chance? He was surprised to hear himself blurt out the question. Becoming the high-calorie hero seemed to have given him a bent for all things culinary. There are stories. Some claim that eating dragon meat makes you immortal. Others say that just a mouthful contains enough poison to annihilate an entire village. Honestly, I've never heard of anyone actually eating dragon meat, so who knows? There were obviously a lot of things Kaito didn't yet know about this world, many of them edible. It made him hungry to find out more. And that was chapter 5. All right. How you doing, chat? Dragon Dude just wants some food. Yeah. This book always makes me hungry. Yeah. There's there's another book series that I would also like to read on chat, which is camp campfire cooking in another world. I believe it's called. Um, it's a guy gets summoned to another world, and he rather than become the hero, he essentially decides to just tour the fantasy world, and so he ends up um cooking outdoors a lot, and it's ostensibly a cooking book. Um, it breaks down like how to cook um, over like a grill fire that you would take camping, or how to do like simple camping recipes. It's ostensibly a cookbook that's in light novel form. I'll add that one to the list too, because that one's actually a really good book. I like that one. Okay, here we go. Chapter 6. The hero's greatest admirer, Hans the Woodcutter. After breakfast the next morning, Kaito and Lilia headed to the pizza parlor. The morning air was clean and bracing, and it promised that work to come would be pleasant. All right, gotta take care of the oven first. I'll help you. Lilia once again offered her assistance. I appreciate it, but go slow, okay? Kaito reminded her, still remembering the previous day's trouble. Gentle, got it. Lilia picked up the cleaning peel. No, I didn't mean move slowly. I just meant you should brush slowly. I wasn't asking you to move 1 centimeter per second or anything. Lilia always kept things interesting. When the cleaning was done, Kaito went to get the fire started and noticed they were running low on wood. Ugh. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Sorry, I had to plug in my headset. When the cleaning was done, Kaito went to get the fire started, and noticed they were running low on wood. Not a lot of firewood here. Let's ask Hans the woodcutter then. He'll bring us some. Kaito was a bit surprised by this. So there's a woodcutter around here? He asked Lilia to arrange the delivery while he started making the dough. They still had leftover ingredients. Come to think of it, would he keep getting new ingredients forever? If it turned out he would only be given supplies early on, he'd eventually need to find a way to get them on his own. That meant he needed money. As Kaito worked the dough, trying to think of ways to come up with some cash, there was a knock at the door. Good morning. Hans the woodcutter at your service. I brought firewood. Wow, that was quick. When Kaito opened the door, he found a blue-eyed, curly-haired elf standing there. Or, at least he was pretty sure it was an elf. He had blonde hair and pointy ears, but Hans was a little different from the other elves Kaito had met. For starters, he had a face as round as a rice ball. Lilia and the other elves of the village had much slimmer features. And then there was his physique. Most of the locals were notably thin, but Hans had a certain plumpness. In fact, he was about the shape of a barrel. His clothes looked fit to burst, like the buttons might fly off at any moment. Pleased to meet you. The headman sent me. I'm the woodsman Hans. Nice to meet you, Hans. It seemed Hans was indeed a member of the village. In other words, definitely an elf. Probably. Hans, for his part, seemed oblivious to Kaito's confusion. You don't know how overjoyed I am to be talking to the hero himself. Oh, thanks. Hans had suddenly gotten so close that they were practically nose to nose. Kaito hurriedly put some distance between them. This guy is so intense it's scary. Hans was smiling happily and unloaded a huge bundle of firewood from his back. Here's a delivery as requested. Material from broad-leaved trees, not too smoky and doesn't leave a lot of soot. Thank you very much. Oh. Just as Kaito was trying to express his gratitude, the heavy wood threw Hans off balance. The whole load clattered to the floor in an avalanche, leaving Hans lying dazed on top. There was a further cracking sound as several of the logs gave way under Hans's weight. It was a cruel way of adding insult to injury. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I am so very sorry. Hans struggled to get up off the pile of wood. He was so round, it couldn't have been easy for him to stand. No, it's all right. The poor woodcutter had gone so pale that Kaito felt downright sorry for him. He's very emotional, isn't he? I'm just so careless. I'm so very sorry. No, seriously, don't worry about it. At that moment, Hans looked directly at Kaito, his eyes brimming with such passion that Kaito thought, is he about to confess his love for me? Instead, Hans muttered, I'm so happy you deigned to choose our world, O honored hero. So, not a love confession. That was a relief. Kaito stopped looking for a window he could jump through and turned his attention back to the elf. We prayed and prayed to the goddess, but she said something about heroes having a certain amount of discretion, and none of them ever picked us. That's why we're so glad you're here. Oh, no way. I didn't pick this place. It looked like I had a choice, but I didn't. I got duped. Who would want to be a high-calorie hero? But, he reflected, he'd never realized the goddess might have had a reason like that for sending him. I waited eagerly to find out what sort of person might come to us, but when I saw you, Lord Kaito, I was so overwhelmed that I wept like a boy. Had the had the elves' hopes really been that high? True, they seemed awfully excited to see him. I wonder if I can really be the person they want me to be. A young man from a foreign land with exotic black hair and eyes, and such a kind heart, and no sooner did you arrive than you introduced us to that wonderful food you call pizza. Hans was visibly quaking with emotion. Kaito felt a stab of guilt. I'm I'm sorry, I didn't actually choose this place, and I didn't do it because I was eager to save your world. I just kind of wound up here making pizza. But I'm gonna give this everything I've got, so forgive me. Kaito couldn't break Han's heart, so he swallowed his words. I don't think I saw you at the welcome party? There had been a lot of people there, but Hans would have made an impression in the crowd of slim, elegant elves. No, sir. I was very eager to go and welcome you, but in my excitement I took a fall down the stairs and I couldn't move for a while. But I'm fine now. Hans took a large glass jar out of the bag hanging from his shoulder. There was something golden inside. The woodcutter pulled out a spoon and began chomping down on it. Somewhat concerned about what was happening, Kaito asked hesitantly, "What's that?" "Oh, it's honey. Do you want some too, oh honored hero?" "Oh, no, thanks." He didn't think he could manage mouthfuls of the thick, gooey honey without anything to put on it, but Hans happily emptied the jar. Whew, that was energizing. Now to gather this firewood. I think I know why Hans is the only fat elf. Hans noticed Kaito staring at his rotund belly and said, "Ah, changed your mind about the honey, have you? Don't worry, I've got more." He produced a veritable pile of glass jars full of honey, so that was why his bag was so stuffed. "Oh, no, how much of that stuff do you have, anyway?" "The idea of running out of honey is the most terrifying thing I can imagine." Are you an addict? You've got a honey addiction." "Addict? Is that something tasty?" Han's eyes were shining. Uh, let's get away from the subject of food for a moment. You know what? Never mind. You live your life however you want." "Yes, sir!" Hans cheerfully began collecting the firewood. "Oh, yeah! I was thinking I might make a sign for you if you wanted. I've got a board with me if you like." A sign? True, he was going to have a shop. A sign would be nice. "What are you going to call this place?" Hmm, you mean its name? He hadn't even thought about it. That's a good point. A restaurant needs a name, but I just can't think of one on the spot. You two, brainstorm something. "I know!" Lilia immediately raised her hand. "How about delicious pizza?" Kaito had hoped she really had something, but he practically fell out of his chair at the suggestion. "Keep it together. Just smile." Uh, yeah, thank you. That's certainly simple and direct, but it doesn't really say restaurant name to me. It's more exposition." "I see." Lilia began thinking deeply. Hans's hand shot up. Got a good idea? Yes, sir! Hans opened his mouth to speak, his expression tense. Pizzerio. Pizzerio. Kaito stared at Hans for a moment. Yep, he's keeping a straight face. He must be serious. Did you just put pizza and hero together? Yeah. Um, hmm. Like what they used to do with light novel titles, but don't you think that's a little cryptic? Would longer be better? Then how about the shop where the honored hero makes the world's very best pizza ever? Um, yeah, that definitely lets you know what you're getting into, but I think it's a little too long. It might be hard to remember or say. This is getting us nowhere. Yep, my fault for relying on others. What to do, what to do. Kaito sank deep in thought. The name of his pizza parlor had to be something distinctive, elegant, with a good sound, but memorable. Then it struck him. How about Grateful World's End Pizza? Magnificent Pizza at the World's End? Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds cool. But just as he was about to share his idea with Lilia and Hans, he remembered the faces of the elves when he'd announced his made-up hero name. They'd been completely flummoxed. Their reaction had been almost physically painful to him, and now he was on the verge of a repeat performance. What was I thinking? This isn't the end of the world. It's just a normal village. Grateful Another World Pizza, then? Because, hey, I'm in an alternate world? No, that doesn't remotely sound appetizing. It would only leave people wondering what was in my pies. What's wrong, O honored hero? Hans was looking at him with concern. Oh, nothing. Simple as best, I think I need to go back to the basics. Kaito started racking his brain. I need a name that's easy but could only belong to my shop. Something inviting, something that'll make people confident the food is going to be delicious. What about the Hero's Pizza Parlor? I'm the only one in this world, or the only one who makes pizza anyway, so that makes the name unique. But is it a little too simple? Kaito's heart pounded as he gauged the elf's reaction. That's fantastic! I knew you'd come up with something, Lord Kaito. Hans and Lilia trembled in sheer admiration. You really like it? It's the best! I knew you could do it, Lord Kaito. It felt pretty good having the two of them heap praise on him like this, but he couldn't help wondering if he'd really come up with something worthy of this level of adoration. Still, it was simple and understandable, and that was what counted. Well, time. Oh, that's supposed to be Hans. Well, time to make the sign then. Oh my goodness, I picked the absolute worst voice for Hans. Hans pulled out some woodworking tools. That's one versatile bag. Kaito hadn't seen woodworking implements for a long time. It pulled on his heartstrings. He remembered how they used to make desks and stuff in class. Hey, isn't this kind of dangerous? That wood is hard. He wouldn't be able to keep his hands steady. Hans Hans was smoothing the surface of the board with a chisel-like tool when his hand slipped. Oh! Kaito gave a shriek. No worries. I'm okay. Okay? You almost chopped off your finger. Kaito's heart was still pounding. He nearly witnessed a major emergency before his very eyes. No worries at all. This time, the hand holding the chisel slipped slightly, and the sharp blade grazed Hans' protruding stomach. Ah! I can't do it. I can't watch. Hans, stop. Just forget about the sign. No worries. I'm gonna carve the name right here. Crack. Ah! This time, the blade bit into the wood inches away from his thumb. This isn't quite working. Hans, wait. Kaito couldn't help shouting. What is it? You almost buried that thing in your hand. I'm fine. You are not fine. I can't do it. It's too awful to watch. Plus, I don't want a sign that's covered in blood. What can I do? What can I do? Hans, I have a request. Hans looked up at him. Anything! Now, what can I say to distract him? What's this feeling of deja vu? Oh, Lilia was a handful too in her own way. Why don't you let me carve it? Oh, no, I'll take care of it. But, it's my sign for my store, so maybe I should do it. Hans still didn't look happy. Kaito thought hard. He wants to help me. It's painfully obvious, but it's backfiring on him. I just need you to help me out. Hans looked doubtful. Help you out how? Start eating some of that honey. You know, the stuff in your bag. How will that help? Hans still hadn't relinquished his grip on the chisel. It won't. This is a stupid idea. You get so energized when you're eating that honey that it makes me feel strong just watching. That's how you're helping. Oh, I get it. Kaito wasn't sure exactly what Hans got, but his incoherent excuse. Kaito wasn't sure exactly what Hans got about his incoherent excuse, but the elf happily began cramming honey into his mouth. Is everyone around here like this? Kaito muttered as he took up the chisel. At long last, Kaito finished the sign. His work had been halting and slow at first, but by the time he was finished, it was going along smoothly. Hey, I'm pretty handy. Whew, done. Whew, done. Just as Kaito finished the sign, Hans finished eating his honey. Looks like I just made it. Nice work, Hans. With your help, I was able to get the sign done. And done well. It looks wonderful. Well, it was all thanks to you. Thanks to you keeping out of my way, specifically. It was an honor to be at your service, O honored hero. Hans's eyes were welling up with emotion. Yeah, even though I did most of the actual carving and you just sat there eating honey. Kaito was completely exhausted, but he managed to smile. The unfamiliar work had left his muscles stiff and his stomach empty. Let me treat you to a pizza to thank you. So this was the situation. Hans had caused nothing but trouble, so Kaito was going to treat him to a pizza. Wow, really? Yeah, I'm pretty hungry myself. How about you, Lilia? Lilia nodded vigorously. When he saw the margarita pizza that Kaito had cooked up, Hans howled. Wowee! Does that ever look good? Look at that melting cheese! It occurred to Kaito that this was the first time Hans had ever encountered this pizza. Get it while it's hot. Staring at the dish, Hans slapped his knee in an epiphany. "I'll bet this would go great with honey." Honey, like honey, honey? Yes, indeed. Hans eagerly pulled out a bottle. "I keep an emergency jar around for situations like this." "Oh, what the heck? Bon appetit!" And then Hans was slathering honey all over the pizza. I've seen people put Tabasco sauce on their pizza, but honey? Hans, wait, Hans! Kaito's voice was practically crackling. "This is amazing!" Hans quivered with emotion. "The best!" The cheese and the honey just the cheese and the honey just melt together, and the way it complements the distinctiveness of the tomato sauce. Oh, really? Could the tastes actually go together? I put honey on everything I eat. He he made Kaito think of the kind of people who drench everything they ate in mayo. Some things stay the same no matter what world you're in. Do you want some, honored hero? Hans the honey freak held out a slice to Kaito. Rich, dewy honey was dripping from it. It actually looks sort of nice, but I think I'll pass. You can have all of it. I'm getting heartburn just looking at it. Just how much of a honey freak is this guy? Kaito patted himself on the back for not asking the question out loud, and so what was supposed to be a simple firewood delivery turned into a messy all-day affair. But at least he got a sign out of it. He was looking forward to hanging it the next day. And that was chapter 6. And take a small break. I picked the absolute worst voice to try and give Hans the elf. I apologize in advance for whenever that character shows up again. Definitely not an American writer, otherwise it would have been ketchup rather than mayo. Yeah. I've been meaning to try Kewpie mayonnaise. There's a grocery store near me that sells um, Asian food, but I don't want to just put it on anything. Like, I don't want to just. I don't just want to replace like American mayonnaise with Kewpie mayonnaise. I want to try it with like an actual recipe that it would pair well with, at least for starters. Like I wanna try it with like a really nice pairing of food just to kind of give it its best chance. Because I don't want to try it on something awkward and then just not like it. I have a great story like that. My grandmother heard that tofu was a good diet food. So she decided that she was going to try eating tofu. So she bought a massive block of tofu, took a slice of the tofu, and just put it between two slices of white bread. It was unseasoned, no additives, just tofu in bread. And to this day, she will no longer eat tofu. It was so funny. I came home and I'm like, "What are you eating? Why are you eating this?" She's like, "Oh, it wasn't very good." And I was like, "Of course it wasn't very good. You don't just eat the tofu." It was funny and I still laugh about it, but yeah, it was so funny. Just it's like, why did you try and make a tofu sandwich? Okay. Chapter 7. Kaito's first delivery customer is a career woman. This one sounds fun. Lord Kaito! Kaito was cleaning the oven the next morning when Lilia burst in, throwing the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. She had clearly been running full tilt. Her hair was a mess. What's going on, Lilia? The elf girl's green eyes were shining. We've got an order. What? Someone wants a pizza delivered. All right. Their first delivery customer. Kaito's heart raced. Who is it? What kind of person are they? What kind of pizza do they want? Calm down, Lord Kaito, Lilia said, smiling at her excitement. The order is from a person named Belinda. A woman, huh? Yes, she's extremely smart. She even studied in another country once, and now she works as the queen's tutor at the castle. Wow, amazing. So a career woman, huh? Her house is about 5 minutes by carriage. Carriage? Now that he thought about it, Kaito realized he'd neglected to figure out how he would make deliveries. Doing them on foot around here didn't seem feasible. He wanted the pizza to be as fresh as possible when it got to his customers. You mean carriage like... Oh, you can use the family's carriage, though it's more of a cart. It doesn't have a roof. That would be great. It felt like he had to rely on the Headman's family for everything. I've got to make sure I get this place up and running and stand on my own 2 feet. By the way, I don't know how to drive, pilot a carriage. Oh, I can drive. Thank you. Lilia was turning out to be a huge help. She could knead dough and clean the oven, and now it turned out she could drive a carriage. She's a really good girl. Pretty cute, too. Kaito hurriedly dismissed that thought. He had a delivery to focus on. So, what kind of pizza does she want? All I can really do right now are margarita and marinara. She said she wants to try them both, but there's only one of her, and she can't eat 2 whole pizzas. Whatever shall we do? Lilia asked, confused. Oh, we put them both on one pie, a half and half. Half and half? Lilia's eyes were wide. It's popular for deliveries, good for people who get bored with just one flavor or who want to try 2 different things. Half of it will be a margarita and half of it will be a marinara. Can you do that? Lilia gasped in shock. You have to keep a close eye on the cooking time, but sure. Amazing! That's incredible, Lord Kaito! Lilia was so full of praise that Kaito found himself getting a bit embarrassed. Anybody in my country could have told you about that. Okay, let's get started. I'll get the carriage ready. Lilia left the restaurant and Kaito set about making the pizza. Both flavors used tomato sauce as a base, so the first step was the same. Kaito put a spiral of tomato sauce on the shaped crust. Now it was time to show what he could do. First, he put mozzarella cheese and pargi on exactly half of the pizza. The other half got a dash of salt and the hanakak, garlic, along with some sliced garlic. These fantasy herb names are, fantasy herb name. Finally, he drizzled olive oil over the whole thing. Perfect. He slid the finished pizza onto the peel and put it in the oven. Because both halves had different ingredients, careful cooking time would be essential. Kaito diligently rotated the pie, making sure both sides got cooked thoroughly. That oughta just about do it. The pizza came out perfect. Kaito put it on a dish and set a silver lid over it. That would help keep it warm. Lilia, it's all set. Outside, Lilia was already aboard the carriage. The vehicle was pulled by a single white horse. The animal seemed to be from the elf village, a beautiful thoroughbred. The carriage was a simple construction of wooden boards, made for carrying cargo. Lilia waved the reins in her hands. I'm ready. Kaito jumped up next to her. Now, off we go. Sure thing. Then the carriage was off. Lilia's speed was perfect, not too fast, not too slow. They weren't going much faster than a bicycle, so Kaito wasn't worried about sitting out in the open. You're really good at this, Lilia. I've been around horses and carriages my entire life. Wow, is that so? Come to think of it, I've only ever seen them on television. This little, it's a little wobbly, but the breeze is nice. This isn't bad at all. Are you a rider, Lord Kaito? I've never been on a horse. Well, once, I guess. I did this pony ride once when I was a kid. He had been at some amusement park. His memories of the ride were hazy. It had involved one of the staff members leading him around. Kaito had literally just been along for the ride. I wonder if I could learn. I'm sure you could. If you want, I could teach you. Thanks. I'd like that. The carriage rattled along, and before they knew it, they were at Belinda's house. It was a small place, but the garden was well tended. Hello, pizza delivery. Sorry. Pizza delivery for Icy Wiener. Why don't I read these things ahead of time? Sorry for the tangent. The door opened immediately to reveal a woman in her late 20s. Kaito thought he wasn't very good at guessing elf ages yet. Wearing glasses. Her long chestnut-color hair was tied back in a single bunch. Her almond-shaped eyes were olive green. She cut a rather stern-looking figure. Please, come in. She ushered Kaito and Lilia into the parlor. It was covered in a subdued but girlishly flowery pattern. I'd like to chat with you a bit, so I'll put some tea on. Sure. Kaito was a bit surprised. He'd expected to make the delivery and go right back home, but this was his first delivery customer. If possible, he wanted to observe her reaction and hear what she thought. Here you go. She offered him a cup with a cute golden flower on it. She even brought a plate of cookies. Thank you. Bon appetit! Before Kaito could even express his gratitude, Lilia had shoved the cookies into her mouth. Wow! Delicious! These have cornmeal in them, right? Yes, that's right. A cornmeal cookie. I would have liked to tried that. But the plate previously home to 4 cookies was now empty. Lilia, you and your monster appetite. Lilia sipped her tea, completely oblivious to Kaito's dirty look. Well then, I'll help myself. Do you cut this before you eat it? Belinda was holding a knife and fork. Oh, it's already cut into slices. You just pick one up. She looked at Kaito in surprise. Really? Pick it up? Your hands might get a little dirty, but it's the easiest way to eat pizza. Plus, it's delicious. Well, all right. She sounded determined. She picked up a slice of margarita. I guess she probably comes from a good background. She's a little hesitant to eat with her hands. Belinda took a bite of the margarita, and her eyes went wide. How is it? It's wonderful. The cheese is so rich. The crust is so fluffy. When she had finished the slice, Belinda took a piece of the marinara. Oh, the sourness of the tomato sauce is perfect. It goes well with the garlic. Kaito felt a rush of relief to see Belinda enjoying the food so much. Mission accomplished. Belinda readily finished the entire pie, then wiped her mouth with a paper napkin. What did you think? Did you like it? Well, Belinda cocked her head in thought. The margarita is extremely rich. It has an aggressive strength, like a wild animal that wants to drag you off. It's like being pulled by a big muscular arm you can't resist. Kaito stared at Belinda, dumbstruck. She is talking about pizza, right? The marinara is more of a cheerful man, open and honest, but somehow cynical. He has a passionate heart and leads you gently along. Belinda was rapturous. Uh, Man, did she just compare a pizza to a man? That was when his eye wandered over to Belinda's bookshelf. Among the score of different specialist tomes, several books with purple dust jackets stood out. A series of some type, it appeared. Kaito's eyes went wide as he happened to notice the titles. Dragged Away by a Beast in the Desert Night, The Kidnapped Fake Bride, The Secret of the Handsome Duke, In the Mansion of Delights. Unmistakably novels in the vein of Harlequin romance. Belinda, it seemed, enjoyed love stories, which influenced the way she described her pizza. Is something wrong? Kaito realized he had stared fixatedly at her bookshelf. Belinda was looking at him curious. Oh, no, I was just thinking you're quite a reader. Belinda heaved a sigh. The cultural level of this nation is disappointingly low. It's not easy to get books. I have to wait for the great market each month to get anything. The great market? What's that? On the first of every month there is a market in the town square. Merchants from other countries often show up, so you can buy things that would normally be unavailable. It's quite a lovely place. So ingredients weren't the only thing lacking around here. Apparently, they were short on books and all sorts of things. He could see why they had been hoping for a hero. How do you intend to save this country now that you're here, honored hero? I'm sorry. You did come to save our world, didn't you? I guess so. I sure I sure didn't, was something Kaito knew better than to say at this moment. Belinda was seriousness itself. Apparently, when she said she wanted to chat, she hadn't meant about the pizza. Look, I hate to disappoint you, but I'm really not a great hero. The best I can do is cheer everyone up by making some tasty pizza. She continued staring at him. So it'd make me very happy if you would just enjoy my cooking and not worry too much about the whole saving the world thing. Maybe she was disappointed. Finally, Belinda opened her mouth. At first, I didn't know what to think about you. This country surely did need a hero, but welcoming an outsider into our quiet, peaceful nation, I worried you might upset things. Oh, Kaito exhaled. He hadn't realized some people felt that way. But your words are quite reassuring. Now I'm glad you came. Our country isn't very eager for change or development. Many people still feel trapped in the old ways. It's hard to break people out of those habits, but I believe a powerful, revolutionary figure like a hero might be able to help us. Belinda smiled at Kaito. I'm confident you'll be able to introduce slow, subtle change. Kaito had the distinct sense she was complimenting him. Thank you. I'm sure I'll order another delivery in the future. Sure, since he had a willing customer right here, Kaito decided to do an informational survey. I'm thinking about expanding our menu. Anything you would like to see? Good question. Belinda thought for a moment. I'd like there to be something sweet, perhaps. Something sweet. How very feminine. He hadn't expected such a request from her. I'll look into it. Please do. She's right, though. Leaflets from pizza places always include desserts. Now that, not that I've ever ordered one. Belinda paid for her meal, and Lilia and Kaito left the house. She's pretty impressive. Miss Belinda is very well known for her intelligence. She's always thinking about difficult things. Is that right? It takes all kinds, I guess. Kaito was pleased by the discovery that he could meet different types of people through pizza. It made the job seem more meaningful than he'd first believed. Are you thinking about Miss Belinda? Huh? Kaito, surprised by her soft voice, looked at Lilia, who sat holding the reins of the carriage. Miss Belinda is very beautiful, isn't she? I know smart, pretty women are attractive. She turned her head away and pouted. What is she pouting about? Whatever. I've got to get her back in a good mood. Nice work today, Lilia. Thanks to you, our first delivery was a big success. When we get back to the house, I'll bake you a pizza to thank you. Lilia, his pause his pause was starting to quicken. His pulse was starting to quicken as Lilia stayed expressionless. Make sure you put plenty of cheese on it. I sure will. Seeing Lilia back in good spirits was a huge relief. And that was chapter 7. Hey there, X. How are you doing? Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep the Futurama quotes to a minimum. Difficult things like romance novels, apparently. Hey, everyone has their vices. Some people are really smart and talented, and, they just want popcorn entertainment. You know, you can't be brain surgeon smart all the time. Sometimes you got to do something silly and fun. Uh, let's see. I'm wondering. Okay, I think I might do 2 more chapters. 'Cause the next 2 chapters are pretty short. How am I doing on time? Yeah, I'm doing pretty good on time. I think I can do 2 more chapters. Doing the Hans voice was a real mistake. I'll have to figure out something else for the Hans voice. I'm glad you're doing good, X. Uh, wait. It's not rocket surgery? What the heck is rocket surgery? Alright, I just turned my desk fan on. You guys let me know if you can hear my desk fan at all. Okay. Chapter 8. Lilia's Girls' Day In. There are some unsettling rumors going around. Huh? It was a breakfast like any other at Lilia's household when Edmund spoke darkly. They concern our queen, Her Majesty Eleonora. Your queen, huh? The name didn't ring any bells for Kaito, but they were obviously talking about the most important person in the country. Not quite brain surgery, not quite rocket scientist. Yes, last year her parents passed away and Her Majesty Eleonora inherited the rule of the kingdom at just 16 years old. She had been raised for the throne from childhood and is both a capable and responsible person, but Edmund seemed to be having trouble finishing his sentence. But what about her? It seems she doesn't think favorably of your pizza. What? Nutrition is something she takes almost as seriously as leadership. As a rule, she eats only vegetables and fruits. She claims that's the proper diet for elves. I see. So, kind of a vegetarian and maybe an organic something or other. The implication was that she would regard calorie-heavy junk like pizza as a sin. What I mean to say is, forgive us, you've come as our hero, yet you haven't been invited to the palace. Oh, don't worry about it. I didn't really care one way or the other about the palace. Edmund seemed very apologetic, but Kaito didn't especially like stiff, formal occasions. If the queen decided to shut him down by force, that would be a problem. But if she just didn't like his food, well, that was okay. Now, with that out of the way, I hear some of Lilia's friends will be coming over today. Is that right? Yeah, we'll be borrowing the living room. At Lilia's request, Kaito was going to treat 3 of her friends to pizza. Unfortunately, his restaurant wasn't yet equipped with a seating area, so they had to use the mansion's living room. Lilia has truly found an excellent husband, Edmund said, overcome with emotion. Kaito became flustered. I don't think we've actually gotten married yet. Oh, yes, of course, you're both so young, there's no need to rush. Still, though, it does behoove you to keep a certain distance from other women, observe propriety and all that. Isn't that basically the definition of getting married? But Kaito couldn't say anything else, because Edmund rolled right along. I know. How is this? Hero of the land, exotic looks, let me start over. I know how it is. Hero of the land, exotic looks, every girl in the village must have eyes for you. It's enough to set a young man's head spinning. Not particularly. Kaito's sole concern at the moment were what he had to accomplish in this world and how best to improve his pizza making. There's no need to hide it. Edmund clapped Kaito on both shoulders. There was an unexpected sparkle in his eye, and his voice was passionate. We men understand these things. A man is an eternal hunter. But there's one quarry he mustn't pursue, and that's the friends of your wife-to-be. Only agony comes of this." Edmund's face stiffened into a grimace of fear. Is he speaking from experience? "Men always think they can hide these things, but it's a vain hope. Women have a sixth sense, a sharp intuition, and you'll soon be discovered, and then misery." Uh, Sir, I was definitely not thinking anywhere near. I was not thinking about getting anywhere near Lilia's friends. "Yes, of course, I knew you to be a loyal man the moment I saw you. Take good care of my Lilia." Kaito stood dumbfounded with the distinct sense that he had dug his hole even deeper than before. "Well, have fun with the girls today. I have a meeting I must attend. See you." Kaito couldn't get a word out before Edmund had bustled from the room. "Why won't anyone listen to me?" Kaito felt a wave of fatigue, but headed to the shop nonetheless. He had a pizza to make before company arrived. Take a small break. That was a lot of attempted deep manly voice. "'Tis not advised to do both at once." The king very much got caught at some point doing something that he should not have been doing. Alright, back to the book. "Ah, hello! Thank you so much for having us today." The girls greeted Kaito with voices that were veritable screeches to his ears, making no effort at all to hide their interest in him. "Hello! Pleased to meet you." Thank goodness, we met at the welcome. Sorry, let me start over. "Hello! Pleased to meet you." "Goodness, we met at the welcome party." "Oh, but we haven't introduced ourselves yet, have we?" "I'm Alicia." "I'm Elizabeth." "And I'm Charlotte." Charmed. All of them had straight, long, golden hair. Frankly, he could hardly tell one from the other. He managed to remember them, though, because Alicia was short, Elizabeth was tall, and Charlotte had a freckle on her nose. Okay, I'll cook the pizza up and bring them in." "We'll set the table. Oh, this is from my parents, for the honored hero." Alicia held out a green vegetable that looked like spinach and something else that seemed like mushrooms. "We grew these in our own field." "Thanks." Kaito had been planning on making regular margarita pizzas, but when he saw the proffered mushrooms, he changed his mind. It might be interesting. It might be interesting to try something a little different. "Oh, Lilia, here's some apple juice." Elizabeth took out some bottled juice while Charlotte produced a paper bag. "I brought paper napkins. Don't you think the owl design is cute? I found them at the Great Market last month." The pitch of the girls' chatter quickly rose, and Kaito showed himself out. He might be in another world, and the girls might be elves, but the way they behaved didn't seem so different from gaggles of girls in his own world. Was this what they called a girls' day in? Kaito had never been a part of such a thing. "Okay, time to show these girls what I can do." Kaito boiled the vegetables he had received and sliced the mushrooms thinly. Then it was time to shape the crust. Judging by Lilia, those girls were likely to have massive appetites. They could probably devour a large pizza in no time. He decided to make 5, including some for himself. He covered them with tomato sauce, then added the vegetables and mushrooms. I've got a good feeling about this. Kaito began baking the pizzas one by one. Sorry to keep you waiting. As Kaito brought in the meal, Lilia and her friends rose in excitement. Wow! No sooner was the food on the table than Lilia and her friends were cooing in admiration. It looks wonderful! Are these flowers? They are! Can I see them? Kaito had arranged the slices of mushrooms to look like petals and the boiled vegetables to look like stems and leaves. The happiness of the girls' faces told him it was a success. I thought I'd use the stuff from your garden right away. Thanks for bringing it, Alicia. Wow, I'm flattered. Alicia burst into a smile. What's this pizza called? This pizza is called capricica. Oh my goodness, this is a real word. It's a fancy pizza. It basically means on the chef's whim. I tried arranging the vegetables Alicia gave me into a flower shape. This is amazing! Come on, dig in! The girls' enthusiastic reactions made Kaito reflect once more on how important presentation was. Food was enjoyed with the eyes first, colors and shapes, before being put into the mouth. Get the appearance right, and people look forward to tasting it even more. One by one, the girls erupted into praise. It's delicious! Amazing! What a wonderful texture! The tomato sauce is so thick, and you can really sink your teeth into the vegetables. And, of course, the crust is so fluffy. It's like there's more to discover with every bite you take. I'll never get tired of this. Kaito had gotten pretty confident in his pizza-making abilities, but the prospect of entertaining Lilia's friends had intimidated him somewhat. Now, at last, he felt his worries fading. Thank goodness. The girls gobbled up the large pizza. How are you doing? If you're still hungry, I can make more. It's okay. If we eat any more, we won't have room for dinner. Wow, you're still planning on having dinner? So that huge pizza was just a snack. It was then that Kaito noticed how lively the girls seemed. Their cheeks held a slight reddish tinge, and their skin seemed to be shining mildly. Maybe the delicious pizza had filled them with energy. At least he would be happy to think so. I've heard you were opening a restaurant. Yeah, just takeout for now. We deliver. Be sure to let your friends and neighbors know. How much does the pizza cost? 1 silver coin. He had determined the price after consulting with Edmund and his family. It was a bit expensive for a meal, but considering the ingredients involved, not too expensive. For the time being, Kaito was getting his ingredients from cards, but if the supply ever stopped flowing, this price would stand him in good stead. And, since he was hoping to expand in the future, he would need funds. Sounds good. I'm sure I'll order something. Tea's on. Drinks were brought out for the well-fed girls. Thank you so much. Oh, I don't know. Oh, hold on. Oh, hey, I don't know too much about this world. Are you girls still in school? Only the smartest kids go to the Academy of Higher Education. The entrance exams are really hard. Everyone nodded as Charlotte explained. So I help in my family's orchard. Alicia works at her family's store. Alicia is the best at sewing. Her mom is a sewing teacher. We're all students of hers. I get it. You're all friends from class. Suddenly, something occurred to Kaito. Weren't these girls all the same age as Eleonora? Have any of you ever met Queen Eleonora? Sure, we pay our respects when she comes to the harvest festival and stuff. What's she like? Suddenly, the girls' faces were all beaming. She's so pretty, and she's so cool and mature. You'd never think she was the same age as us. Yeah, she's on another level. I guess that's royalty for you. Clearly, Eleonora was the object of some admiration. It sounds like she's got it rough, though. She had to take the throne so suddenly, and some people wonder if she'll be able to maintain our. Oh, that's supposed to be one of the girls. It sounds like she's got it rough, though. She had to take the throne so suddenly, and some people wonder if she'll be able to maintain our relations with the neighboring countries. A young, politically inexperienced girl thrown into a realm of international diplomacy. The other local rulers would eat her alive. Then again, we've never been a very powerful country, so maybe things won't change so much after all. We're the smallest of all the nations around here, and the poorest, too. The girls were smiling as though none of this had much to do with them. Kaito gave a weak grin. True, the country of the elves wasn't flushed with resources, but time flowed easily here. He could focus on making his pizzas and find a whole day. He could focus on making his pizzas and find a whole day over in the blink of an eye. I never expected to have moments like these. He'd hoped to be an awesome hero, but now he reflected on how different it would probably be if he were constantly having to fight. He would never get a calm moment, and all the responsibility would be on his shoulders. He would probably get hurt, and people might die. Maybe making pizzas is more my speed. So, honored hero. Alicia sounded teasing, but her eyes were full of curiosity. Kaito swallowed. He had a bad feeling about this. How are things between you and Lilia? Is it true that you're going to get married? You two work together, don't you? The questions came flying at him, pinning Kaito in place. Well, you see, he glanced at Lilia, who had gone red with embarrassment and was stealing furtive glances at him. I have to go check the oven. Oh, he ran off. He's shy, that hero. His face was completely red. Kaito could hear the girls' laughter behind him as he fled the mansion and headed to the shop. Chapter 9: Eleonora's Secret. Kaito was getting the oven ready one morning when the door to his restaurant flew open. Kaito, this is terrible! It was Edmund. His face was pale. What's going on? What's terrible? Judging from the headman's pallor, it was clearly a pretty big deal. A messenger just arrived from the palace. What? From the palace? That made Kaito's heart rate spike. He'd heard that Queen Eleonora, who lived at the palace, wasn't a big fan of pizza. What had she sent a messenger for? Did she mean to charge him with sedition and throw him in jail? A whole parade of awful images ran through his mind in the span of an instant. The messenger says you must bring a pizza to the palace. Secretly, of course. Why? I don't know. I was simply told that a pizza should be brought and that no one should find out. A carriage is waiting for you. Oh, will you please come with me? Kaito nodded and hurried out of the shop. Parked in front of the mansion was a black lacquered carriage he had never seen before. The paint looked glossy, and the decorations on the edges were in gold. It took no more than a look to know that this carriage was a completely different category from Lilia's cargo wagon. The horse was an impressive specimen. It looked strong enough to get anywhere you might want to go in the blink of an eye. Standing by the horse was a man dressed in black to match the carriage. On his head was a black hat. His nose and mouth were covered with a black cloth, and his eyes, which were just visible over his mask, glinted with intelligence. And was that a sword peeking out from under his black cape? The man looked overall very dangerous. It was the first time Kaito had encountered such an intimidating person since arriving in this world. He swallowed heavily. "Are you Lord Kaito?" the manager asked, his voice muffled by his mask. "I am." "The palace sent me. I have come on a secret mission." Okay. That sounded very serious, and Kaito's anxiety ratcheted up another notch. "From what I heard, you are the hero who brought the thing called pizza to this world of ours." "I am." Kaito nodded, thinking it didn't seem like that big of a deal. "The government is rather disturbed by the great and sudden revolution you've wrought." Great and sudden revolution? It's just pizza. True, given what the elves had been eating before, it was probably quite a shock, but still, it was just pizza. "Hence, the conclusion has been reached that a quick and quiet investigation is necessary." Um, sure. Quiet. That was why they'd come in this ostentatious black carriage. People were already looking curiously from a distance, or going to stick out like a sore thumb. Edmund had once told Kaito not to expect too much from the country's soldiers, and if this was how the emissary from the palace acted, maybe that made sense. A black carriage might have been a good idea if they had bothered to come at night, but showing up in the middle of the most visible place in town on a perfectly clear day, Kaito wanted to burst out laughing. Suddenly catching himself on the verge of tittering, he had to give himself a quick pinch to hold it in. The messenger was the picture of seriousness, and Kaito suspected that exploding in laughter would be frowned upon. Well then, Kaito desperately Kaito desperately surfaced a guffaw. I understand you just Oh, I understand. You just need me to make a pizza, right? Yes, when you finish it, I will transport it and you to the castle post haste. I'll get right on it. The dough was already fermented, so all he had to do was shape it, put the toppings on, and bake it. Will one, will just one be enough? Yes. Um, Pizzas cost 1 silver coin each. You'll be paid at the palace. Got it. They were going to pay him. That meant this was real work. Kaito was excited. I think a tried and true margarita pizza is the way to go. He quickly but carefully put the pie together, baked it, and put it on a silver tray. Put it on a tray with a silver lid. It's ready. Please get in the carriage. The messenger held the door open for him. The interior of the carriage was surprisingly cramped, but maybe that was just because that was the way carriages were. His escort started the horses running. As they came out onto the main street, Kaito heard someone call his name. Hmm? He looked out the window to see Lilia following him. She was pale-faced and running as fast as her legs would carry her. Hey, don't run. That's dangerous. Stop it. He was in a carriage. There was no way she could catch up. Lord Kaito! Still, Lilia kept running. It was clear she was extremely worried. Strangely, the carriage was unable to lose her. Apparently, she was quite an athlete. Her furious pursuit made him think of the... Okay, this is going to be a reference not many people get. Her furious pursuit made him think of the No play Dojoji. The girl Kiyohime, betrayed by the priest she loved, transforms into a giant snake and chases him down. The messenger seemed to sense something was wrong because he picked up the pace. Hey! Lilia's legs finally gave out and she tumbled spectacularly to the ground. Kaito could only watch as she pitched forward as if in slow motion, both hands outstretched to catch herself. She slammed onto the ground. Lilia! People crowded around the collapsed elf girl, but the scene swiftly grew further away. Oh, maybe she's okay? But Kaito, unable to do anything for Lilia, found himself fretting as the carriage rocked along. After a while, the palace came into view. The first things he saw were the towering spires. It was a textbook castle, done mainly in white. There was some castle in Germany that had supposedly been the model of Cinderella's castle. Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. While Kaito sat racking his memory, the carriage pulled up at the back gate. The building was surrounded by a moat. At a signal from the driver, a gate opened slowly and a heavy wooden bridge was lowered. Pretty sure I've seen this in a movie. Kaito felt slightly impressed. I am in a fantasy world, after all. The carriage began making its way across the bridge. When it had entered the castle, the bridge gradually went back up. Kaito's ride came to an end, at which point his escort reopened the door. We've arrived, sir. When Kaito climbed out of the carriage, he found himself in a dim, forested area. This way, please. Shortly thereafter, they emerged from the silent woods and found themselves confronted with one wall of the royal palace. The messenger knocked several times on the wall, part of which proceeded to slowly retract. They were obviously going in the back door, or rather the secret door. Now, quickly inside, please. Yes, sir. Kaito entered, his heart pounding. He was in a dark hallway. There weren't even any windows. Flickering candles on the wall provided the only illumination. Kaito followed the messenger until they arrived at a particular room. There was no windows. There were no windows there either, leaving the place dark even in the middle of the day. Now, give me the pizza. Sure. Wait here, please. And with that, the messenger disappeared with the food. The room was as bleak as a prison cell, but it had one table and one chair. Kaito, faced with few other options, sat down in the stiff seat. What's with the decor around here? This place is depressing. On the table sat a brass candelabra, the candle inside providing only the faintest illumination, and wavered as if it might go out at any moment. I hope I get to go home soon. Kaito breathed a deep sigh. It seemed to be more It seemed to be more than the guttering candle could take. The claustrophobic, windowless room was immediately thrown into darkness. Oh crap, I can't see a thing! Kaito groped his way over to the door and all but tumbled out into the hallway. Fortunately, the door hadn't been locked. Geez, that scared me. His heart still pounding. Being cooped up in that bizarre room in pitch darkness is no joke. Now what? Kaito stood in a daze in the dim hallway. There was no sign of another living soul. Should I wait for the messenger to come get me? For how long? The candles in the candle holder on the wall flickered unsteadily. No good. If those went out too, I think it would kill me. Kaito started down the hallway looking for his escort. The path continued along a gentle curve, and at the end of which he finally found a door. The door was ajar, light filtering out from inside. It looked like sunlight, pretty bright sunlight at that, so the room beyond must have actual windows. Kaito peeked through the crack. This room was the polar opposite of the gel cell-like place in which Kaito had been waiting before. The floor had a carpet of deep blue color, and all of the furnishings looked gorgeous. This was a proper reception room. In the middle of the room was an elf girl wearing a beautiful light blue dress. Atop her halo of pale golden hair rested a striking crown. Even just standing there, the girl looked like she'd stepped out of a painting. Her beauty and style were flawless, and she oozed nobility. Wait, could that be Queen Eleonora? Eleonora didn't move a muscle as she stared at the tray sitting on the marble table in front of her. Hey, that's my pizza. Eleonora had her arms crossed and a suspicious look on her face, eyeing the pizza intently. Kaito remembered Edmund telling her that Eleonora was into healthy food and despised junk. So this is pizza! She picked up a slice, her hands shaking. Kaito's breath caught in his throat. What would she do? Would she throw it away? The hero's heart raced as he watched her. Slowly, almost fearfully, Eleonora brought the pizza to her mouth. She chewed thoughtfully, and then her blue eyes shot open. Maybe she doesn't like it. But the next second, Eleonora began digging into the slice with gusto. She looked like a starved animal tearing apart its kill. No sooner had the queen wolfed down one piece than she started on the next, and soon she had polished off the entire pie. Oh, wait, that was an XXL. It was supposed to feed 4 people. He thought Lilia had an appetite. In his amazement, Kaito leaned a little too close. Oh no! The door swung open. The door swung all the way open, throwing Kaito off balance and sending him stumbling into the room. Crap! He looked up, and his gaze met that of the astonished Eleonora. Her light blue eyes opened wide. Ah! She emitted a strange sound, probably never before uttered by such royalty. Who the hell are you? Kaito couldn't help noticing the tomato sauce and cheese still clinging to her face. The fingers pointed at him dripped grease. I'm very sorry. The candle went out, and I thought no one was coming, so I went to find someone. Kaito could hardly seem to get out a complete sentence. The queen was staring daggers at him. You're Queen Eleonora, aren't you? He asked nervously. She nodded slowly. So this girl who had assumed the leadership of the country at So this was the girl who had assumed leadership of her country at 16. And I suppose you're the high-calorie hero? Yes, ma'am. No matter how many times I hear it, it still just doesn't sound cool. So it was you who made the pizza? Yes, ma'am. Eleonora was gazing icily at him. Belinda endorsed your pizza wholeheartedly, so I requested one to try myself. Oh, you know Miss Belinda? His first delivery customer, a woman whose glasses made her look prudish, but whose bookshelf full of Harlequin romances said otherwise. He'd heard she was employed as a tutor here. Eleonora lifted her chin so she was looking down her nose at Kaito, her lips twisted into a frown. It's a vulgar food, thick and oily, fluffy and rich. She drooled. The queen hurriedly wiped away at her mouth. This is the first time I've eaten something so base. You have some nerve bringing such coarse foodstuffs into my country. I'm very sorry. I simply cannot fathom why such an intelligent woman as Belinda would be so mad for such a thing, though I will grant the flavor is very stimulating. Her eyes flitted over to the empty dish. I may need to consider imposing regulations on this food. Regulations? And just when I was starting to expand my business. But he couldn't oppose the queen. Kaito tried desperately to think of a way to explain things to Eleonora, who was studying him gravely. At the same time, a doubt began to creep into his mind. Eleonora had been acting very strangely ever since Kaito entered. What she was saying didn't match the behavior he'd witnessed. Could it be that the queen actually enjoyed the pizza, but her pride was too great to let her admit it? If so, he still had a chance. Kaito decided to commit to the possibility. Forgive me, your queen, for offering you something that does not please the royal palate, but you need not fear. I swear I never delivered I swear I'll never deliver a pizza here again for as long as I live. You mustn't! Eleanora went pale. You mustn't say that, because... yes! This is the food the people are eating, is it not? The most popular menu item available? As ruler, it's my duty to understand what moves my subjects. My office demands that I eat your pizza. But regulations and sanctions could be most harmful to me. Eleonora turned away from Kaito, seemingly in embarrassment. Ah, yes, about that. I said that in the heat of the moment, or, well, what I meant was, perhaps in a worst-case scenario, it might come to such a thing. I understand, your majesty. Kaito kept his head bowed in hopes Eleonora couldn't see the smirk stretching across his face. The quaking of his limbs was hard to hide. For that reason, you shall bring me another pizza tomorrow. She was stealing little glances at Kaito to gauge his reaction. Tomorrow, your majesty? Yes! Research is required on my part to understand precisely what this pizza is. Rulership can be a burden. Indeed, your majesty. Kaito took care his voice didn't shake. What a contrary young woman. She obviously loved the pizza, but she refused to admit it. The carriage will be sent for you again. Come in the back gate as you did today. I'll instruct the messenger what to do. Yes, ma'am. Now, take your payment and go home. No, wait! Yes, your majesty? This pizza, as you call it, is this all your menu offers? Kaito suppressed another gale of laughter. This queen is something else. No, your majesty. In addition to the margarita pizza, we have a simple concoction of tomato sauce and garlic pizza called a marinara. I see. Then, for tomorrow you shall bring me 2 pizzas. 1 margarita and 1 marinara. 2 pizzas, your majesty, are you sure? Why, is that not feasible for you? Quite feasible, your majesty. Surely she doesn't plan to eat both of them, although given the way she inhaled that pie earlier. How can someone so thin eat so much? Eleonora was so thin and dainty that she looked like she would break in half if you hugged her. Did you just say something? No, ma'am. Kaito quickly bowed and left the room. He returned home the way he had arrived in the carriage. As the vehicle bumped along, Kaito heaved a long sigh. That had been a close call, but all went well in the end. What a relief to discover that the queen liked his pizzas just fine. When he got back to the headman's mansion, Lilia came rushing out. Her hands and face were covered in painful-looking scrapes. Lord Kaito, are you okay? I was so worried. What about you? Are you in one piece? I'm fine. Lilia smiled as if she had won an award for bravery. The sight of her grin gave Kaito a rush of release. How did the pizza go over? Well, I think we've got our first regular. Kaito thought back to Eleonora cramming pizza in her face, and he couldn't help but smile. And that is all for today's stream. Guys, I hope you are really enjoying the book. We are about 2/3 of the way through the book. There are 17 chapters, but the chapters are really quite short. So we've got 8 chapters left in the book. I really hope that you guys are enjoying these reading streams. If you are, please let me know on my Twitter page. That way I can make sure to do more of these reading streams often. Here are my socials for you guys. I would really like to try and read more light novels for you guys, simply because they don't make audiobooks for light novels quite as much as they do regular books. So, I really want to share the light novels with you guys because they're fun and they're pretty short in the chapters sometimes. Anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me this today, actually. So Wednesday, over on the SMB Plays Twitch page, I will be DMing some more of the Dungeons and Dragons game. If you check out my Twitter, it'll have all the info there. Thank you guys so much. I will see you next stream. Bye bye.